everyone. Since class is canceled today, I want to go over the compare and contrast essay guidelines, which is our next major assignment. So, if you would please take notes on these, I will be giving you a paper copy of the guidelines, but just take notes on, anything that you think about while we're going through this, and then you can attach that to the paper copy that I give you on Friday. So, the basic requirements for the compare and contrast essay is, 1250 words minimum, so a little longer than your last one, which was 1,000 words. Typed, double-spaced, 12-point Times New Roman font, MLA format. Now, in terms of sources, both songs, so you'll be comparing two songs, so both of them must be cited as a source in the text and in the works cited page. These are considered primary sources. And then we'll do a little bit of research for this one, so you'll choose 1 to 2 secondary sources to support your analysis. You could use informational texts about the song or artists, interviews that the artists have done, opinion pieces on the song or the artists, etc. Just anything that you think is going to strengthen what you have to say. So you're going to choose 2 different versions of the same song and compare them along one of the following lines. So basically you're going to choose a song and another person who covers that same song. Okay. So one is biographical analysis. So how does the details of who the people are affect the reading of the song? Cultural historical analysis, how does the different cultures that the 2 artists come from or the 2 different time periods that they come from affect the reading of the song? Genre analysis is about how the if the song is done in 2 different genres of music, then how does that affect the reading of the song? Identity analysis, how does the how do the identity markers of a specific person change your reading of the song? So if the artist is the race of the artist, the gender of the artist, the sexuality of the artist, the age of the artist, those are all identity markers. So how does that change your reading of the song? Sound and mood analysis is just about how the changes in sound between one version and the other and how that affects your reading of the song. And then thematic analysis, if there are different ideas that are highlighted or different slightly different wordings or something like that, that can lead to a thematic analysis where you think about the sorry guys, I'm a little fuzzy. You think about the the changes in theme between one version and the next. Basically you're looking at how 2 artists take the same song and make it different. And you can note how they're similar, but you'll mainly be focusing on differences. So you don't need to have a paragraph that goes over similarities. Like, I know that in the past you may have done compare and contrasts, where you have like one paragraph that talks about how they're similar and one paragraph about how they're different. You don't have to talk about their similarities at all. The similarity is that it's the same song. So you're mostly going to focus on differences. But if there's something similar that they do that is important to your reading of the song, then you can talk about similarities, but only if it's necessary, okay? So, we've talked a little bit about claims. Claims are basically a statement of purpose. It's why you're writing this, what you want the reader to get out of it, that sort of thing. So, a claim has to be made about what this comparison means. It's not simply enough to point out the similarities or differences to say, like, see, they're different. You have to make a point about what that set of similarities and differences mean. So, you can't just go, oh, well, here are all the differences between the two. And your reader's going, and, what's your point? Why should I care? So you have to say, here's what's different, and here's how it changes the meaning of the song in certain ways. So that the reader can understand, like, oh, they're trying to get me to see this song a little differently. So the claim cannot simply be evaluative, that one is better than the other, or descriptive, that one is like this and the other's like that. It has to be analytical. You have to say something about these different versions. Of course, that does not mean that you cannot include evaluation or description in your essay. It just can't be the main point of your essay. Okay, the main point of your essay has to be analytical in nature. You can have and state a preference, and you should describe both songs and their similarities or their differences mostly, but but it just can't be your main point, right? Your main claim cannot be, like, one's better than the other. Sorry. The problem with evaluation is that it relies on the assumption that you define a good song the same way as everyone else, and trust me, you don't. The other problem with evaluation is that it can't be proven with evidence. It's just a personal preference in a lot of cases. Now, you may say, well, some people have better taste than others, and, that some people's tastes have more influence or whatever, but like, you're not a music writer for Rolling Stone, so it can't be proven with evidence, and you need to be able to prove a claim that you make in this essay with evidence from the song, from the artists, from that sort of thing. And then the problem with description, on the other hand, is that it doesn't need proving because it's just factual. So, like, it doesn't, you don't need to prove it because it's just a fact. So it doesn't make a really good claim. So here are some examples of good and bad claims. And this uses a couple of songs that we'll use, that we'll look at as examples on Friday. In the cover of Such Great Heights, Iron and Wine changes the mood of the narrator from anxious to depressed, leading the listener to believe that the separation between the narrator and his lover might be more permanent than in the Postal Service's version. This claim reveals something new about the song that the listeners might not have thought about before. It requires evidence to back up since it's not factual. You would use things like pacing, vocals, and instrumentation as evidence because it's a sound and mood based analysis and a little bit of a thematic analysis thrown in. And it's specific and focused on specific parts of the song, so the mood of the song and its thematic meaning. A bad claim, on the other hand, might look like this. Iron and Wine's version of Such Great Heights is much slower and more repetitive than the Postal Service's version. This is an example of a descriptive claim, and we want to avoid those. So this is just a description of the difference. This might be good as evidence, but it's not a claim. It's entirely descriptive, okay? So you want to avoid saying something like that. Because there's no so what. Every claim has to have a what and a so what. As one of my college teachers once told me, and this one has a what, but it doesn't have a so what. It's just a fact. Another example, the Postal Service's version of Such Great Heights uses discordant instrumentation to convey a sense of anxiety, hinting that the narrator might not be reliable, while Iron and Wine's version uses repetitive sound and simple instrumentation to convey a sense of depression, highlighting the sense of defeat the narrator feels. This reveals something new about the song that the listeners might not have thought about before. It requires evidence to back up since it's not factual. Instrumentation and mood would be used as evidence. It's specific and focused on specific parts of the song. A bad example, though, would be something like the Postal Service's version of Such Great Heights is so much better than Iron and Wine's version because it's got more going on. This is just an opinion based on the assumption that a song that has more going on is an inherently better song. So it's evaluative, okay? It just evaluates, I like this one better than the other one. And so we're trying to avoid that. Another bad example would be, like both versions of Such Great Heights are really interesting. That really doesn't tell me anything. It's kind of meaningless. And it's also, just an evaluation of both songs that is positive. So we want to avoid just saying, it's really interesting. That's also a generalization, and we want to stay away from those as well, per, one of my 8 rules of writing. So for evidence for this one, you have to use specific observations of the song to back up your claim, and you must make said observations relevant to the claim. You cannot just use broad generalizations or summary to back up the claim. To that end, keep in mind that you're not going to cover everything there is to say about your 2 versions, and that's expected. You're covering one point of comparison between the 2 and giving only the relevant information to cover that point. Okay? So, when I say observations of the song, what I mean is you're going to either quote specific lyrics, or you're going to describe specific sounds that you hear, or things like that. You'll also have evidence from your research, so that might include background information on the artists or something like that, but you do need to have observations from the song regardless, in order to say okay, well, so if you look at this lyric, the background of this artist, leads me to believe that this is this is the meaning of that lyric. Whereas the background of this other artist leads me to believe that it means this instead. Okay. And so you want to have specific comparisons of specific lyrics or specific sounds. So sometimes it's not about the lyrics, it's about the sounds. But sometimes it's about both. So just be as descriptive as you can in your evidence. And remember to introduce both songs and artists in the introduction. So you introduce the name of the song, you introduce the two artists who wrote it, or not who wrote it, but who performed it. And then give a brief summary or description of each, and then move on. Okay? I don't need a comprehensive summary of either. Only summarize what is necessary for the reader to understand the claim and its evidence. Often people want to just write their paper as like a summary of what the song is about, and that's not really what we're looking for. Okay? Now, you will use at least 4 close readings of these songs as evidence for your claim. Okay, I want to see at least 4 close readings. Close readings are basically pulling out a specific lyric or a specific sound and delving into it. Okay, and talking about the comparison of that specific lyric or sound within the 2 songs. Now, this one comes with some fun alternatives. The rest of them will come with similar fun alternatives. The first one I just wanted you to do an essay because that's, I want to make sure that you guys get some, experience with essays before you try any fun alternatives. But so one alternative is that you can work with a partner, provided that each of you contribute roughly equally. There's no modifications you need to make, but just share a document with each other and both be working on it at the same time, and make sure that you're working collaboratively instead of just like you write this paragraph and I'll write this paragraph and we'll just slam them together. You want to make sure that you're creating a paper that feels like it's been written by one unit. Okay, so you need to be working together on the revision process. You need to be working together on the, proofreading process. You need to be, even if you draft different paragraphs, right? So you might, in the drafting process, be like, okay, well, you write this paragraph and I'll write this paragraph. But then once you put them together, you should be working together in order to make that seamless. You can work with a group of 3 if you write an additional 300 words and each of you contribute roughly equally. So that's also an option. I recommend that if you are working with anyone else on your paper, that you work with someone that you know is going to get their work done. Okay? Because if you don't know if that person is going to really come through for you, there's not much I can do to help. It's one of those things where I'm like, well, I guess just write the paper yourself and take their name off of it. But it's, and it can be hairy. So make sure that it's someone that is a good student who's going to come through for you. And if you know someone in one of my other classes that you want to work with, one of my other 101s that you want to work with, that's fine. It's fine with me. As long as you're, doing the same paper. Now, another fun alternative is you can write 300 fewer words if you also create a video or audio file where you play specific evidence with your own voiceover commentary. So, like, you play part of it and then you have, like, you pause it and you have like a sort of voiceover commentary where you talk about, so in this part you can hear this thing, and here, let me play it, and then you play it and you say, okay, well, so like you can hear that, and then in this other version, so that's an option. If you create, you can do this multiple times. If you want, just make sure that you get approval first. You can compare 3 versions of the song, provided you don't use the third version as an excuse to add length. So don't just add it in because you're like, oh, well, I ran out of stuff to say on the other 2, so I better add this third one. No, but like if there's 3 versions that like really work for you, like you're like, well, these 2 versions are different in this one interesting way, but then there's a third version that's also different in an interesting way, and I feel like comparing both of them to that one as well would also enrich what I'm trying to say. You can also, if you want, create a website. You would still have to meet the word count, and it would still need to have all the criteria met, including claim, development, and evidence. This would entail making sure you use the standard elements of this format, and that includes visuals. So, like, if you want to focus on words, you write a paper. If you want to focus on visuals, you can make a website. Links to your research and to like the music, sections and headers that sort of separate the information in a way that a website would. Okay, so you want to make it look like a website. And you would email that to me. Email me a link to that website. Here's a fun one that people have used in the past, and it can work really well. You can record a 20-minute podcast that uses short clips from the song that you analyze in detail. You want it to sound like a podcast, so I've had people give it a name and be like, welcome to the song listening podcast, and really have fun with it. Try to have personality. Don't just, like drone on about the song and yeah. Like you want it to be, really interesting and filled with personality, and you want to play clips from the song and talk about it. And you can also do this with a partner if you want. I've had really great podcasts with partners where it's like there's a dynamic there of like 2 different perspectives, and but if you record a podcast, write yourself an outline of the podcast before you record. Okay, so your drafts would be outlines of what you're gonna say, and you want them to be as detailed as possible. You want to have like where you're gonna insert clips, what you're going to do, what you're going to say, what you're going to talk about, and not just like going back and saying the same thing over and over again. But the podcast option has yielded some interesting results that I really enjoy. Plus, it gives me something to listen to on my commute. You can also create and give a presentation of no less than 10 minutes that utilizes the visual medium to the fullest advantage. Shows visuals to make a point. Visuals can be anything from pictures to very short video clips, side-by-side comparison, etc. And it needs to be thoroughly engaging. See me for more details if you choose this option. You can either present it to the class. I'll give you class time to do that if you want to present to the class in person. Or you can record yourself giving the presentation like I'm doing now, with, like a little video of yourself in the corner giving the presentation, and then the PowerPoint on the screen. I can, show you how to do that. But either way, you do have to, present it. You can't just make a PowerPoint. It has to be visually engaging. Simple words on a slide format is not engaging. Quotes, phrases, or key words should be the most wording you should expect your audience to read. No full sentences, no paragraphs. You can use note cards, but you shouldn't read from a script. The presentation should seem rehearsed, and you should consider using note cards only as a guide to your main talking points. Presentations will not be graded on speaking quality. While it's good to speak naturally as possible, the presentation will not be graded on your ability to speak well in front of an audience. Okay? We'll leave that for speech class. Nervousness is normal, and it will not affect your grade. That said, try to speak clearly. Slowing down helps. And like I said, you can record yourself if you don't feel comfortable speaking in front of the class. And also, if you have an idea about an alternative assignment that you want to try, run it past me and I will consider it. Some of these ideas came from students. The podcast idea, the website idea, the, side-by-side comparison, the audio file. All of those are ideas that students came up with. So, if you have something you want to do and you're like, I wonder if she'd let me do this, I might, honestly. So just let me know. Now, here's a guide to citing songs in MLA. If you want to use APA, that I'm fine with that, but I know less about APA, so you would have to maybe go to the Success Center or to the library to get help with APA. But here's how to do it in MLA. So it depends on where you got it. If you listen to it on CD, if you listen to it on Spotify, if you listen to it as an online album, or if you watch it on YouTube, these all have different ways of citing. So, each example comes with an overview of what the information is, what information needs to be there, the punctuation, how everything should be formatted. And then the example. Okay. And then, so note that some of the examples go on a little bit longer, and so therefore take up more than one line. In that case, you're using a hanging indent. So the first line is not indented, and the second and every subsequent line are indented. If you don't know how to do that, I can show you. Just ask me someday. And that's it. So I want you all to do me a favor and write down in your notes for this one question that you have, at least one question, and I will address any questions that you wrote down in class on Friday, so that way, like, we can still address the questions and that you won't have forgotten, about the essay entirely by the time we ask questions. So have a question prepared for class on Friday. Now, the other thing that I want you to do is I want you to get a sheet of paper, a blank sheet of paper, and label it number 13. And I want you to write about just what are your music tastes, okay? Just write about your taste in music. What do you like? What do you gravitate toward? What do you like to listen to? Give some examples. I want at least one page handwritten. If you want to type it up, like maybe half a page to 3/4 of a page, depending. And I want to know, like what kind of music you listen to, what music means for you, those sorts of things. So if you would please write down all of that for me, and that will be helpful in trying to decide which songs you're going to use. We're going to have a long process where I'm going to show you how to do this. So we're going to have lots of examples, and we'll talk about them in class, and it'll be fun. If you have any requests for examples that you would like to go over, then please let me know, and I will consider them. So, all right. So those are our 2 assignments for today. The notes on the compare and contrast essay guidelines with one question. That's number 12, and a page handwritten about how like what your music tastes are and what you like about music and what you gravitate towards. I gravitate towards more indie stuff, indie rock stuff especially. I like stuff that's, really nostalgic. I like stuff that's, a little bit weird. That's got a little bit of a weird sound. I'm really drawn to singers with a little bit of a weird voice. And so, like just those sorts of things, okay? So please do those things for me today, and I will see you guys on Friday, okay? I promise. All right. I will see you soon, guys. Have a great day, and see you later.